Hey YouTubers, I just wanted to come out with a video. A lot of people have come out with videos that are about, what they have for a first aid kit and what's in it. I thought I'd do something a little different rather than just going through everything that's in my first aid kit. Talk about just some things, more like advice with some of the things I've learned over the years. I'm a former EMT and I'm also a former CPR and first aid instructor, and I always used to tell everyone anyway, make their first aid kit their own. And what I always meant by that was, you had to add the things that you're most likely going to use. If you prefer Advil to Tylenol or something like that, because let's face it, more than likely you're going to be treating yourself from your first aid kit. So I want to just talk about a couple of things that I thought just good advice, inexpensive additions, or just things you can do. I figured I'd start with one thing that I noticed no one was talking about in their first aid kit. Their first aid kits, which I thought was a little odd, but then again, it's such a inexpensive, non-exciting item that I can see how it's overlooked. That is the classic triangular bandage. These most often are non-sterile. And what is it? Well, it's really a triangular piece of cloth. Nothing special. It is usually very roughly cut. But what you can do with this is so many different things. First of all, being triangular shape, it can be used to make the classic sling. But also, you can kind of roll it up like this, and you can use it as a tie down in lieu of using a roll of gauze. You can wrap this around a wound that you've put a piece of gauze pad on, and just wrap this around and tie it off. Or you could even use this to tie off some splint that you've put on someone. Or also you could use it as a tourniquet. That's one thing I personally do not do, is I don't carry a dedicated tourniquet. I know a lot of people do. And that's great. I think tourniquet has a place in the certain first aid kits, but I think anyone that has one, they do require just a little bit of training, and I would certainly recommend that you just get that very basic training. It's a very basic tool. It can save lives, especially when you're dealing with a catastrophic amputation or really severe bleeding, but obviously it's not your first go-to thing. But anyway, enough about that. Again, the triangular bandage. It seems funny because like any bandaging class anyone's had it in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, they use a ton of triangular bandages. I used them always in the classes I taught, and they're so inexpensive that really you should have at least two of them with any first aid kit. The other thing I wanted to mention was when you do have a first aid kit and you keep it out in your car, and again, we all have first aid kits dedicated to certain things. This one over here is the one I keep in my truck, and then I have this one over here that I take with me hiking. So always we're deciding what we're going to carry and what things we might not carry. But one of the things I want to recommend, just from my experience with things I carry in my truck, was for whatever reason, it must be because the major temperature fluctuations. I live up in the Northeast, so something sitting in my truck can probably go from 0 degrees at one point in the year to on a sunny hot day with the windows all up, probably to about 150 degrees with the interior of my truck. So I noticed that my Band-Aids, when I go to use them, were affected by this, that they were almost brittle when I'd be trying to pull them taut to put them on a wound. So I always make it a point that any of the Band-Aids that I leave in my first aid kit in my truck, I always get these flexible fabric. That way I don't have that problem. So this, as I said, it was just something I experienced, and I wanted to just mention to other people. And speaking of things that you're going to be cognizant of their temperature surroundings and storing, is the ice pack, the classic cold pack. This is a great thing to keep with you in your first aid kit, especially when you are away from home. So ideally it would be in your car. Even smaller ones might be ideal to have with you on the trail because you're not going to find ice if you need it while out hiking. But one of the things, if you notice, I have mine in a big Ziploc bag. I've had 2 of these burst while stored in my first aid kit in my vehicle. And the material, what's inside these is basically a little bag of water and then a chemical, and usually it's or it used to always be ammonium nitrate. I know they're working with some other chemicals now, as opposed to using the classic ammonium nitrate. But that is an oxidizer. So what did that mean? Well, besides the wetness ruining all my bandages, the oxidizer also ruined my stethoscope. You know, the metal parts of my stethoscope were all rusted, and one of my bandage scissors was all rusted. And it was because this got so cold that it burst. So I make it a point, if I don't remember to take it out of the vehicle entirely during a real cold spell, that I always put them in at least single wrapped in a Ziploc bag, if not double wrapped. So just something you might want to consider. Protect your other gear. Store this almost wrapped up on its own, the ice pack. One of the other things I wanted to mention was saline solution. This is classic saline solution that you might buy if you're a contact lens wearer. It's sterile saline. Usually people don't think of it as a medical tool, but it really is. Besides doing the eye wash, you can use it to clean a wound. The nice thing about it is, if I open this up, you can kind of give a nice little squirt with the material here, with the little cap. Makes a nice stream, which can be really useful for when you're trying to clean a wound. You can, it's not like huge. It's not like it caused someone a lot of pain when it's squirting onto their wound. And again, that's like a $2.50 item tops at Walmart. The other thing that's an inexpensive item, here I'll wipe that up, is this. Classic chewable aspirin. In other words, baby aspirin. I know that's not really an official term. It's considered low-dose aspirin. As you can see, it's about 81 milligrams. Low-dose aspirin. Why do I carry this? A lot of us have Tylenol and Advil, but a couple years ago, I thought my mother was having a heart attack. One of the things that's ideal to give someone in a heart attack is aspirin. There's certain special aspects to aspirin that other NSAID type things don't have. Advil, Motrin, Aleve, or any of those things. They don't have the qualities that aspirin have for the purposes of, basically limiting the damage of a heart attack. So after that time, fortunately my mom's okay. But after that time, I made it a point that I was always going to have aspirin. I always thought of myself as someone that was always very prepared. So when I wasn't ready for that, I was a little annoyed with myself. I recognized all the classic symptoms of a heart attack, but I couldn't give her that basic first aid while we got her to the hospital. And after that, I decided I'm going to go buy a bottle of Bayer and keep it with me. And really, when I was at Walmart and I was looking at the classic, Bayer aspirin, I looked over and I saw the chewable aspirin. I'm like, that's got to be more effective. And it actually is. I found a Harvard study that says chewing aspirin, when trying to get it into your system quickly, is ideal. It's the preferred route. So if you have someone having a heart attack, you want to give them at least one aspirin. So it'd be 4 of these baby aspirin would equal 1 regular aspirin tablet. Okay, that's it. That's low dose. The dosage is just different, but 4 of these make up 1 single regular aspirin tablet. If you chew it, it gets into your system that much quicker. So why not have chewable aspirin? I know actually once I bought these and had them on hand, I started using them myself just for headaches and so on. I still have my Advil, still have my Tylenol, but I just grab these and I'd take these every now and then, and I find that it relieves my headache a lot faster. And this is a triple pack. It is 3 little bottles, 36 tablets each, and this is less than $3 at Walmart. This pack is less than $3. So we're not talking about a lot of money to be prepared for things. I know a lot of people like prepared for the gunshot wounds and all that, but I think most of us will encounter someone having a heart attack long before we do meet someone having, with a gunshot. But anyway, I just want to bring these things to you rather than go through a whole first aid kit, what's in mine and so on. I will post on the bottom of this video and a link about that Harvard study I mentioned, but I also want to mention, I'll put a link in there also from the American Heart Association for the contents that they recommend for any first aid kit, and you can go buy that as well. But anyway, thank you for viewing.